Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. The bartender looked at me like I'd asked him to poison someone. Just put it in there, I said, pointing at the ice bucket. My voice cracked. My fingers were still clutching the velvet box, trembling even though the bar was warm. Packed, actually. Music pounding, laughter everywhere. No one knew what I was about to do, except me. He hesitated, then shrugged. Whatever you say, man. The ring sank beneath the ice cubes like it was nothing. But it was everything. 2 years of my life. 18 months of planning. 4 months of lies. And the final 2 weeks where I became a ghost in my own engagement. I didn't stay to watch. I turned, walked out the door, and left it behind, just like she left us the moment she met him. I bet you're wondering how I ended up there, standing next to an ice bucket while the woman I planned to marry was laughing across the room with another man. Let's rewind. It all started when I found the second toothbrush in her car. Not at home. Not in our bathroom. Not in my car. Hers. Passenger side door, stuffed in the pocket. Blue, medium bristles, still damp. And definitely not mine. I asked her about it that night, half expecting a joke. That's weird, she said casually. Maybe it's yours? It wasn't. And she knew it. But I dropped it. Like I always did. Like a coward. I told myself it was just a misunderstanding, because the alternative would have broken me. And honestly, I wasn't ready to shatter. Not yet. But it didn't stop there. Then came the late nights working. The locked phone. The perfume she hadn't worn since our first vacation together. Now suddenly returning with her every weekend. Still, I said nothing. I just kept being the guy who made her breakfast. The guy who left notes in her lunch bag. The guy who still practiced how he'd say his vows. And she was slipping away in plain sight. Until that Saturday night. She told me she was going out with Jules and Amanda. I nodded, kissed her cheek, and watched her leave in the red dress I bought her last Christmas. But she forgot her charger. And I, like a total idiot, decided to be helpful. That's how I ended up driving downtown. Phone charger in hand, thinking I'd surprise her. But I was the one who got surprised. She wasn't with Jules. Or Amanda. She was at the rooftop bar on 6th. Sitting across from a guy I didn't recognize, holding his hand across the table. Her smile was real. Her laugh was effortless. Her body language said, mine. She kissed him, right there in public. And something inside me broke. But not in a loud, dramatic way. Cracked silently, like a shelf under too much weight. The kind of break you don't see coming until everything collapses. I didn't confront her. Not then. I just went home and started planning my goodbye. Not a fight. Not a scene. Just a moment. One she'd never forget. I wasn't supposed to go inside. The plan was simple. Give the bartender the ring, walk out, and never look back. Clean break. No confrontation. No messy scene. Just a silent exit with all the pain neatly packed into a velvet box buried under melting ice. But I didn't walk away. I stood outside the bar like an idiot, staring through the glass as my fiancée leaned in close to him, her shoulders swaying with laughter. Her hand was resting on his knee. Not the kind of touch you'd give a friend. The kind you give when you've already forgotten someone else's name. I should have turned around. Should have left before the image branded itself into my memory. But instead, I froze. Maybe I wanted to feel something, anything, other than the numbness that had been building for weeks. The bartender looked toward the door like he was expecting me to come back. I saw him glance down at the ice bucket, then at her. I don't know if he figured it out or not, but he raised an eyebrow and turned away. I didn't even know the guy she was with. I tried to make out his face, but the lighting was terrible, and all I could focus on was how easy everything looked between them. No tension, no hesitation, like they'd done this before, like I had already been erased from the equation. And then it hit me, maybe I wasn't the only one watching. To my left, near the corner of the patio, a woman stood half hidden behind a potted plant. She had a drink in one hand and her phone in the other, angling it subtly toward my fiancé and her mystery date. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't smiling. She was filming. My chest tightened. Was this someone's wife? A girlfriend? or just a stranger who recognized betrayal when she saw it. Before I could react, the woman turned and walked off, disappearing into the night. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and just didn't care. Either way, that video was out there now, proof of the thing I hadn't been brave enough to say out loud. I walked around the side of the building, back to my car, but I didn't get in. I leaned against the driver's side door, staring at the ring-shaped dent in my life that I couldn't fill anymore. My reflection in the window looked pale, small, and weak. A man outmatched by his own silence. I didn't even know what I wanted from her anymore. An apology? An explanation? Did I want her to cry? To beg? No. I just wanted her to see me. One last time. To look me in the eye and realize I'd caught on. That I wasn't the fool in the background anymore. So I walked back. Into the bar. She didn't notice me at first. I stood near the entrance, letting the noise swallow me whole. She was too busy playing with her hair, nodding at whatever story he was telling. But when the bartender walked over and pointed toward the ice bucket with a quiet, "Hey, this is for you," her head turned. Her smile faded. And then she saw me. I didn't speak. She opened her mouth, stunned, but no sound came out. Her date looked confused. She stared at the ring lying in the melting ice, then back at me, like she'd just been hit by a memory she didn't want to remember. I nodded once, and walked away. I barely made it back to the car. My hands were shaking too much to unlock the door on the first try. I sat in the driver's seat staring through the windshield, unsure if I was breathing or just existing. I thought leaving the ring would feel like closure. Didn't. It felt like setting fire to a house I still lived in. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in a silence so loud it made my ears ring. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. One notification. Callie, one. What the hell was that? That was it. No sorry. No explanation. No guilt. Just confusion. Like I had done something wrong by interrupting her date. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust what would come out if I started typing. Then another one came in just seconds later. Callie, one. You're being ridiculous. Come home. Home. As if that place still meant something. As if the air in our apartment hadn't turned to smoke the moment she kissed that man. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat and turned the key in the ignition, but I didn't drive off. My chest felt tight, like there was a seatbelt wrapped around my ribs. I wanted to disappear, but I also wanted her to see what she'd done. Not just the ring. Me. Everything she walked away from. Then, just as I reached for the gear shift, another notification lit up the screen. But it wasn't from Callie. It was from an unknown number. Unknown. You don't know me. But I filmed what happened tonight. Thought you should have this. There was a link. My pulse spiked. I hesitated. Could have been a prank. Could have been malware. But something told me this was real. I tapped it. The video loaded. There she was. Laughing. Leaning in. Touching his hand. The kiss. His arm around her back. Her hand gripping his shirt like they were the only two people in the world. The camera zoomed just enough to catch the moment the bartender dropped the ring into the ice bucket in front of her. Then her eyes searching the room. Finding me. Played on a loop. All 36 seconds of it. I felt like vomiting. Then another message. Unknown, he's married. That's my sister's husband. You're not the only one she's hurting. I froze. Every part of me locked up like I'd just been submerged in ice. So it wasn't just betrayal. It was a tangled mess of deception I hadn't even begun to understand. My fiancée was the other woman, and I was the idiot holding the receipts. I typed back, "Who are you?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then again. Unknown. That's not important. But you need to know. She's been seeing him for months. If you want proof, I have more. More? I sat there, staring at the screen like it was a bomb about to go off. All this time, I thought I was just watching my engagement fall apart. But now, it seemed I was standing in the middle of someone else's collapsing marriage, and I hadn't even realized the floor was missing beneath my feet. I didn't answer. I just saved the video, turned off the engine, and leaned back in my seat. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. But I still didn't want revenge. Not yet. What I wanted was truth. And I was finally ready to dig until I found it. By the next morning, my apartment felt like a museum of someone else's life. Her coat was still on the hook, her hair tie was on the bathroom sink, and her favorite mug sat beside the coffee machine with a lipstick mark from 2 days ago. Every detail screamed that she lived here, but it didn't feel like she belonged here anymore. And maybe the worst part? I still wanted her to come through the door and explain it all away. I wanted it to be a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything but the obvious truth slapping me in the face. I hadn't replied to her texts, not a single one, but she kept sending them. Please talk to me. I didn't mean for you to find out like that. Can we just talk? Just 5 minutes. And then came the one that broke me. I know I messed up. I'll come home tonight. Just don't shut me out. That word, home. She kept using it like we still had one. Like a ring in an ice bucket could be walked back with a simple apology. But still, I said yes. I needed to hear her say it. I needed to see her face when she told me what she'd done. Maybe it was selfish. Maybe I was hoping to see even an ounce of regret. Or maybe I just needed closure so I could finally breathe without wondering why. So that evening, she came back. She let herself in like she always did, walking in slowly like someone approaching a crime scene. Her eyes were red, makeup smeared, hair pulled back like she hadn't even bothered to fix it. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her, until she said the first sentence. I didn't sleep with him. That was her opener. No hello, no sorry. Just that one pathetic line of damage control like it would rewrite everything I saw. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her. She sat on the armrest of the couch, rubbing her palms together nervously. I know how it looked, but we've only kissed. A few times. It was never serious. I didn't mean for it to happen. He just made me feel. She trailed off, like I was supposed to finish the sentence for her. Like I don't. I finally asked. She looked up, startled by my voice. No, Landon. It's not that. You're just always so safe, so predictable. I needed something else for a little while. I swallowed hard. That wasn't just betrayal. That was her gutting me slowly with honesty. And the fact that he's married? I asked, watching her pupils twitch. She blinked, froze. What? Don't lie, I said. Someone sent me the video, told me who he is. You're not just cheating on me, you're helping him cheat on his wife. Her face went pale. That's when the tears started. The real ones. Not the manipulative kind. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she got caught in a lie that reached further than she realized. You weren't supposed to find out, she whispered. That sentence shattered whatever was left of me. Like I was just a blindfolded placeholder in a story she was rewriting without my consent. She stood up, pacing now. I wanted to end it, I swear. I was going to tell you after this weekend. I just needed time. I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. Time for what? One last date? One more lie? Or were you hoping his wife would take the fall first? She stopped walking. She didn't have a response. And that's when I realized she wasn't just careless. She was cowardly. I reached into the drawer, pulled out the small pile of notes she'd written me over the last year. Scribbled love yous, inside jokes, reminders to never give up on us. I dropped them in front of her. You used to mean these, I said. Now I don't even know who wrote them. She didn't touch them. She just stood there, trembling, mascara streaking down her cheek, as if she expected me to fix this. But for once, I had nothing left to give. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't left the apartment all day. I hadn't even showered. I was sitting on the floor, surrounded by the torn remains of photo albums and wedding brochures, things we were supposed to need soon. Instead, they were now part of some pathetic graveyard of almosts and maybes. The knock at the door didn't sound aggressive. It was cautious, as if whoever was on the other side wasn't sure I'd even answer. I pulled myself up, half hoping it was a delivery just so I'd have an excuse not to speak to anyone. But when I opened the door, I froze. She stood there in jeans, a simple sweatshirt, her arms crossed, face tight with a kind of pain I recognized instantly. Not rage, not even betrayal. Just exhaustion. Landon? She asked. I nodded, too stunned to speak. I'm Elise, she said. I'm his wife. There it was, the universe folding in on itself. I tried to reach you earlier, she added. I was the one who filmed the video. I stepped aside without saying anything, and she entered like someone walking into a battlefield. Not out of curiosity, but because she had no choice. She didn't sit down. Neither did I. I only found out a few days ago, she said, keeping her voice low. I saw a message from your fiancé pop up on his screen. I didn't even know your name until I did some digging. She handed me a small envelope. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages between Callie and her husband. Dozens. Weeks' worth. Some were flirtatious, others outright explicit. And then the final one. A photo. Them together. In my apartment. On my couch. I didn't even flinch. I'd gone past pain. I was floating somewhere above it like I was just watching a show about a man who looked like me, sounded like me, but clearly wasn't. I know this is a lot, Elise said, breaking the silence. I didn't come here to yell or make a scene. I didn't want you to feel like you were the only one. That sentence hit harder than I expected, because that's exactly how I felt. Alone. And somehow, hearing her say that out loud made something inside me collapse. She looked around, noticed the photos on the floor, and crouched to pick one up. It was from the trip Callie and I took to Oregon. We were standing on a cliff, wind in our faces, her head on my shoulder. I remembered that day. I remember thinking, this is the woman I'm going to marry. Now it looked like someone else entirely. I stayed with him, Elise whispered, longer than I should have. I wanted to believe it was just a phase. But I think deep down I always knew. I finally found my voice. So what now? She stood up and shrugged. That's your call. But if you're anything like me, you'll try to fix it for a while before realizing you're bleeding from trying to hold broken glass. Before leaving, she pulled something from her pocket and placed it on the table. A silver bracelet. I found this in his glove compartment. I think it's hers. And just like that, she walked out. No theatrics. No drama. Just one broken person handing another the truth. I stared at the bracelet for a long time after she left. It was simple, with tiny initials engraved on the underside. I'd never seen it before. Never noticed she wasn't wearing it at home. Probably because it never was at home. It was for him. I picked up my phone and typed out a message to Callie. Come get your stuff. Tomorrow. Don't speak to me. Then I paused. And added she came by. His wife. She gave me your bracelet. You left it in his car. I hit send. And that's when I knew this wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of something else. Something colder, sharper, and far more honest than whatever we'd pretended was love. She showed up the next morning exactly at 10, like I told her to. Not a minute early. Not a second late. She walked up the stairs with a black duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a face that said she was prepared for awkwardness, but not for war. She knocked twice and waited, clearly unsure if I'd actually open the door or just leave her stuff in the hall. I didn't do either. I let her in. She looked smaller than usual. Maybe because she wasn't wearing any makeup, or maybe because she was finally stripped of whatever false confidence that affair had been feeding her. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the apartment like it was unfamiliar. And in a way it was. The warmth was gone. The framed pictures were off the walls. Half the place was packed up into boxes. I didn't think you'd actually text me, she said quietly, stepping inside. I didn't answer. I just pointed toward the pile of her things stacked near the bedroom door. Clothes, shoes, books, a half-used bottle of her favorite perfume. Everything that reminded me of her had been gathered and contained. She looked at it like it had never belonged to her in the first place. She moved to the pile slowly, like her body weighed more than it used to. I watched her pick up a pair of heels and hold them for a second before tossing them into the duffel bag. She didn't look at me once. But I had one more thing for her. One more item she didn't know I'd found. When she was halfway done, I reached into the drawer of the TV stand and pulled out the envelope Elise had left behind. The printed screenshots. The the texts, the photo. I placed it on the table right next to her iced coffee. She froze when she saw it. Her fingers hovered over the envelope like it might burn her. I wasn't going to show you these, I said finally, my voice low. But then I remembered how you looked me in the eye and said it was just a few kisses. She didn't say anything. Her hand slowly moved away from the envelope. She didn't need to open it. She knew what was inside. Elise said you met him at that conference last summer, I continued. You remember? The one you said was all business. No fun? You didn't just kiss him a few times. You spent weekends together. In hotels. In our city. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. That made me laugh sharp, bitter, dry. No. You just wanted me as a safety net. He was the fire and I was the blanket. But the second the fire got out of control, you came running back here to wrap yourself in comfort. Her jaw tightened. You don't understand. He told me he was leaving her. That they were already done. Of course he did, I snapped. Because liars don't stop lying when they find each other. They just get better at it. She blinked like I'd slapped her. Good. Because I wasn't finished. I walked over to the shelf and grabbed the ring box. The same one I'd dropped in the bar. She hadn't asked about it yet. Maybe she thought I'd thrown it away. I hadn't. I wanted her to see it one last time. I opened it slowly, letting the light hit the diamond she used to adore. Then I held it out to her. You can keep this, I said. Not because I forgive you, but because I want you to remember what you almost had, and how fast you destroyed it. She didn't take it. She just stood there with tears brimming in her eyes, lip trembling, shaking her head like she didn't believe what was happening. But I wasn't buying the performance anymore. Take it, I said. Give it to your next fiancé, or your lawyer, or pawn it and buy more lies. I really don't care. She reached for it slowly, but I dropped it on top of her duffel bag before she could touch it. The soft thud of it landing on the fabric was the final sound I needed to hear. She zipped up the bag, slung it over her shoulder, and headed for the door without saying another word. And this time I didn't stop her. No dramatic goodbyes. No last look. Just a closed door behind her and a silence that finally felt earned. 3 days passed after she left. 3 full days of silence, no texts, no missed calls, no cryptic social media posts, just absence. And I thought I was okay with that. I thought the worst part was over. But that's the thing no one warns you about. It's not the explosion that destroys you, it's the echo that comes after. And mine came at 4:12 in the morning. A message. From another unknown number. No introduction. No small talk. Are you Landon? I sat up in bed, heart racing. The room was dark, and I could hear the rain tapping against the window. I stared at the screen for a minute, debating whether to respond. Against my better judgment, I typed back, yes, who is this? The reply came instantly. You don't know me, but I know what Callie did to you. I know everything. And you need to know this isn't the first time she's done it. I blinked, rereading it 3 times. My first instinct was disbelief. This had to be someone trying to stir things up. But then the next message came through, and it hit harder than I was ready for. Her name wasn't always Callie. In Seattle, it was Kendra. She was engaged there too. Same story. She disappeared before the wedding. I sat frozen. My mind couldn't even form a complete thought. I didn't respond immediately. Couldn't. This had to be some elaborate mistake. But then the stranger sent something I wasn't expecting. A photo. 2 people. A man standing next to a woman who looked exactly like Callie. Same dimples, same smile, same ring on her finger. Only the caption beneath the photo said, Kendra and Alec, engagement party. 2019. That's when my stomach dropped. The woman in the photo wasn't Callie's twin. It was her. Just younger. Shorter hair. Same smile I used to fall asleep to. Why are you telling me this? I finally typed. Because I was Alec's sister. He never got over it. One day she was there, planning the wedding, picking flower arrangements. The next, she vanished. Left a note. Said she wasn't ready for a life like his. Took the ring, some money, and left no trail. I felt like I was spiraling. Every conversation I ever had with Callie replayed in my head at once. Every vague answer, every story that never quite added up. The things I thought were quirks suddenly looked like red flags I ignored on purpose. He died last year, the stranger continued. Suicide. I can't say it was just because of her, but she shattered him. He was never the same. I dropped the phone. Literally. It fell out of my hand and landed on the floor with a dull thud. I pressed my palms into my eyes, trying to make the world stop spinning. I'd been betrayed, yes, but now it felt like I'd unknowingly stepped into a cycle that had already ruined someone else. And what if I hadn't found that receipt? What if I'd married her? Would I have been next? I picked up the phone again, fingers trembling. Why now? Why me? I asked. Her response was slow this time. Because when I saw the video from the bar, the way she looked at you after the ring was dropped, I saw Alec in your eyes. Lost, hoping, waiting to be loved by someone who wasn't real. It was too much. I had to get out. I threw on a hoodie and left the apartment, walking into the rain without even knowing where I was going. I wandered through empty streets, past closed storefronts and flickering traffic lights, the kind of walk where the world feels like a stranger and your own life feels rented. By the time I came home, the sun was beginning to rise. I poured a cup of coffee I didn't want, sat on the edge of the couch, and stared at the photo still glowing on my phone. The fake name, the fake smile, the cycle. I wasn't going to be another chapter. Not anymore. It had been a week since the message. A week since I learned I wasn't her first almost husband, and probably not her last. A week of silence from Callie, no calls, no apologies, no explanations. I figured she'd moved on. I figured she always does. But then, one quiet Sunday morning, she showed up. I heard the knock and instinctively felt that same old anxiety swell in my chest. But when I opened the door, it wasn't rage or panic I felt. It was clarity. She stood there holding a small box, eyes puffy, wearing that same nervous look she always used when she wanted something to go her way. I thought I should return this, she said, handing me the box. It was the ring, cleaned, untouched, like nothing had ever happened. I didn't take it. You can keep it, I said calmly, or sell it. I've already let it go. Her expression faltered. She looked down at her shoes. I heard you talk to Elise. I nodded. She took a shaky breath. I don't know what's wrong with me, Landon. I really don't. But I want to fix it. That's when I realized this wasn't her redemption arc. This wasn't some beautiful turning point where we find our way back to each other. This was just another loop in her spiral. And for the first time, I didn't want to be dragged down into it. I hope you do, I said. I really hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. But it's not here anymore. She blinked fast, nodded, and slowly walked back to her car. No yelling, no begging, just quiet acceptance. And when she pulled away, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. That afternoon, I finally went to the bookstore I used to love. I bought a fresh journal. I started writing again, something I'd stopped doing the second our relationship became all about her. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away. I called my mom. I made dinner and played music that made the walls feel less empty. I was still healing. I wasn't pretending to be whole. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. I felt like me again. And that felt like a beginning. Thanks for sticking through this emotional roller coaster. Not every betrayal ends with revenge. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and rebuild on your own terms. What moment in this story hit you the hardest? Was it the ice bucket? Elisa's visit? The final goodbye? Tell us in the comments. We read every one. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more real stories like this one, only on Reddit Confessions.